All right, Steeler fans, it's time for the Monday morning conversation. And the person I'm bringing in, you know very well, Dave Schofield. What's up, Dave?
Oh, not too much, Jeff. We're just rolling through the post-draft offseason. So
That's
we're
right.
in the second half of the offseason for sure now. It's just a few steps here and there away. And then we're going to be talking about doing a training camp tracker and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And, for those that are wondering, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to be predicting the 53-man roster. This is like the way too early prediction. Like, this is post NFL draft. We are trying to figure out, and it's funny. I went back and looked at the 2024 article, and some
So
of the
did I.
names that you had predicted after the draft didn't even make it to training camp,
Yeah.
let alone make the 53-man roster. So, as a quick preamble, take these with a giant grain of salt, but it is a good exercise. I'm sure Dave would say it is for him as well, to kind of get to know the players who are on that cusp or on the fringe. And you never know, maybe there's going to be a player from rookie minicamp that surprises people. I don't know, but this was fun for me. Dave, you?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to figure out who, do do you squeeze somebody else here by cutting somewhere else? It's always gets into that. But one thing we know for sure is chances are there's going to be an injury here or there that changes something along the way. And there's also going to be the Steelers adding another player, whether it's before training camp, during training camp, that could possibly throw things off. So that's why it's way too early. But hey, why not be looking ahead right now to see what kind of battles we'll be looking for?
All right, so we're going to get right down to it. We start on the offensive side of the football, and then we'll go to the defense and finish with the special teams and the specialists. So let's start on offense, and let's start with the quarterback. We have, see, Dave, you use and for those that want to see this in the written form, you can check it out at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time at steelcurtainnetwork.com. I had three. I had Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson. Why? Because they're the only three quarterbacks on the roster. Dave, you went in a different direction. I'll let you explain yourself.
Yeah, just like last year when we actually said another wide receiver who's not on the roster yet was a
Right.
thing that we talked about a lot. I did that at quarterback because, I mean, I don't think the Steelers wants to have Skylar Thompson be their third quarterback. I think that's when they drafted Will Howard. Then he was 3, Thompson's 4. The only question is who was 1 and who was 2. Mason Rudolph is one of those. The other one is not on the roster right now. Whether it be he who shall not be named, that the Steelers think are coming to Pittsburgh, or if they add, even though the pickings are kind of slim, another quarterback, whether most likely free agency, potentially trade, something like that. That's who I think, or even if it's picking up another quarterback because the things don't work out with the first one I was referencing, even if they pick it up right before they have to set their 53-man roster. It could be something of that nature. I just think that's the way it's going to go. I'm not ready to put Skylar Thompson in there because I don't think he's going to be one of the 3 when it all comes down to it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I totally I'm on board with the premise there and your thought process. But for me, I'm going to put those 3 because I think Skylar Thompson is going to be a quarterback on the roster. No, but is that only if Aaron Rodgers comes in? Yes. I don't know if, let's say they bring in Carson Wentz. I don't think that necessarily bumps Skylar Thompson off. Like, so if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire or he chooses not to play for the Steelers, whatever the case may be, I don't know if that bumps him off the 53-man roster. I think it would be a competition. And so you have Mason Rudolph, you have Will Howard. So I don't know. We'll see.
If you don't bring in somebody that's better than Skylar Thompson, then you might as well just go out and you just might as well sign whatever quarterback you brought into rookie minicamp to do things at rookie minicamp. Because if it's not going to be an upgrade, then and it's just going to be, oh, well, is he going to be better than Thompson? Then just don't waste your time and waste the whatever signing bonus that would then be dead money for the player that you bring in.
Because remember, as you said, last year, all we talked about was, the wide receiver that we're going to sign, and they never did. So keep that.
No, right, I like this, Jeff, because you and I handled both angles between the two of us. Okay. So it works.
All right, let's go to running back. We both have 3, and we both have the same 3. Jaylen Warren, Kenny G or Kenneth Gainwell, and Caleb Johnson. All right, David, do you see any surprises there? I really don't.
No, I don't either, except I did specifically put them in a different order than you because I don't know if it'll happen, how soon it'll happen, but I do think Caleb Johnson's going to get the second most carries earlier in the season, and there could he even potentially, morph into getting the most carries. He could. But yeah, I like that complement of backs. I was saying before that I even thought Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and whoever number 3 is, I thought that the Steelers didn't have to panic about running back in the draft, and I don't think they did. I think getting Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round was a great value. So they didn't have to panic, because even if they didn't, they would have had a free agent option to kind of fill that one role that they didn't have of who do you want to hand it to on 3rd and 1. That kind of deal. So I think those are the 3. And you didn't like how much you got to touch the ball in the playoffs last year, Cordell Patterson. Well, I think it's going to be even less in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's for another team. I don't see Cordell Patterson making.
I'm in black and gold, so yes.
Obviously. Yeah, so not a lot to discuss there. I really do actually like, when I put it out on the article, when I wrote it out, I was like, I actually like this running back room.
Yeah.
Warren, Gainwell, and Johnson, whichever order you want to put them in, whatever roles you have them in, doesn't matter. I really like this room. And so let's go to fullback. Now, Dave, you don't have any fullbacks making the roster, and I went with one. So I'll explain my thought process here. DJ Thomas-Jones is a undrafted rookie free agent. Normally, if a fullback as an undrafted rookie gets signed, I'm not going to bat an eye. The Steelers have done this a million times. However, they handed out one of the most lucrative rookie free agent contracts to a non-quarterback with this deal they gave to Thomas-Jones. Now, that tells me that they wanted him to be here for a reason. Now, if they wanted him bad enough, you think they would have drafted him in the 7th round possibly, but they chose not to. So there's a debate there to be had. But I think the Steelers, and Arthur Smith especially, they want to have a flexible guy that could play tight end / fullback. That's what DJ Thomas-Jones does. It's why they brought in Kyle Juszczyk earlier this offseason. So I'm going to take a flyer on this kid, and I'm going to say that the Steelers actually keep him. Now, this will make sense when they get to another position down in the offensive ranks a little bit further. But, Dave, you said none will make it. What's your thought process there?
Yeah. Now, he's out of what, like South Alabama or something like
Correct.
that?
South Alabama.
To me, the reason I don't have him making the roster is I don't think the Steelers, unless he comes out and blows Steelers fans away, Redmond Award, not Redmond, what is it now? Brett Kiesel Award winner here at Steel Curd Network. If he's going to be that kind of player in the preseason, then I get where maybe they're like, yeah, we can't do this. Otherwise, I see them putting him on the practice squad. And if it's a time that they think they're going to utilize him, they'll elevate him. They did it last year with Jack Coletto, the fullback. So a guy that I had on and off the 53-man roster. The problem with Jack Coletto was after just a little bit over a month, they did change his roster status. Unfortunately, it was, instead of being on the practice squad, it was released from the practice squad because they just didn't utilize him. So I see that position, especially coming from an undrafted rookie from not a well-known program, unless he is just absolutely phenomenal in the preseason where they think other teams are going to take notice. I see them saying, hey, practice squad, and then we'll elevate if we want to get him involved in the game plan.
All right. So let's now transition to the skill position players. We're talking outside. We're talking wide receivers. Dave has 6. I have 5. So my 5 are DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin III, and Ben Skoranek. Now, they could keep 6, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do keep 6, and I think Robert Woods would be that 6th person. But I think I'm going to reassess the situation after OTAs and minicamp and see kind of what they're thinking. The more I think about it, the more I probably agree with Dave, your thought process of having 6 wide receivers make the team. I would just have to figure out where I was going to trim a position in another category. I didn't do that in this one. So I have 5, you have 6. Go ahead and read your list.
Yeah, well, my list is the same as yours, except I did have Robert Woods.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have to take all the time to say the names again. My thing is, I didn't have a fullback. You did have a fullback, but that fullback could kind of also go into the next group that we're going to talk about as well. And I just looked at wide receiver and tight end. And I'm like, I think it's safe to say that they could have 9. Do I want a 4th tight end or do I want a 6th wide receiver? For now, to start, because it's new, it's fresh. They just signed Robert Woods. Let's go there. No, I don't think more than 5 would be on the game day roster. And I think Skoranek gets a helmet because of the special teams. But for now, I'm like, if I'm going to keep one extra somewhere, I'm more excited about keeping that extra wide receiver than I would be somewhere else right now.
I agree. So like I said, I'm going to reassess this the next time. I think we do one before training camp. And so I think that's the next time, maybe post mini camp. So we'll reassess the situation then. But you referenced, and I referenced this position earlier in the prediction series of tight end. Typically the Steelers carry 4. We both have 3. Now I mentioned how I had a fullback. That fullback could also be included here with the tight ends, because if the Steelers were to keep DJ Thomas Jones, he would not just be your Dan Kreider type fullback that's in the backfield leading the way. He's an H-back. Exactly. Yeah. So we have the same 3: Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward. And before everyone starts saying, well, why does Connor Hayward have a roster spot? Because the guy still plays quality special teams. But Dave, is there anything you want to add about the tight ends?
Yeah, because I specifically said that in mine. Is I'm like, he was tied with Miles Killebrew with the most special team snaps last year. He's not going anywhere.
No.
All right. That for that, nothing else. So to me, Connor Hayward is I don't see him moving up the tight end list. My goodness, if they decide to go 4, I would probably say it's because someone else showed that he was better than Connor Hayward, but they're not going to cut him. So I know they signed, what was it? Parnham was his name that they signed, but he wasn't even on a team last year to finish the season. I don't know. I mean, if he does great for the Steelers, that's fine, but I'm just not overly excited by it. I think the Steelers can do fine with those 3 and maybe somebody else on the practice squad. And then, because it's so different now that you have the elevations, it really does add a different element into how you break down the players that you keep on the 53. And I know they say, well, Arthur Smith loves him some tight ends. Yep, that's great. Utilize these guys and let's roll.
Yeah. And so to round out the offense, we have the offensive line. You have 9, I have 10. I understand why you had 9. I had 10. I'm going to read off my 10. I have Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Spencer Anderson, Dylan Cook, Ryan McCollum, Calvin Anderson, and Max Sharping. I was thinking that and I've been very vocal about this all offseason, and I even said this post-NFL draft, where I was kind of disappointed the Steelers didn't address the offensive line in any way. I was really hoping they would get some pieces of the puzzle in there together that gives us a little bit more depth, especially in the interior. So I like Ryan McCollum backing up center. Spencer Anderson is kind of a crapshoot for me. Is he more suited for tackle, or is he more suited for guard? And if you have Dylan Cook and Calvin Anderson and Max Sharping, do you need all those players? I'm not sure. I just went with 10 to start. I could see me trimming this down to 9 and freeing up a roster spot in another position, which is what you did, Dave. So I'm going to let you explain your theory there.
Yeah, I was extremely tempted to only keep 8.
Wow.
Because I'm not even excited about that. Then it was a toss-up between Sharping and Cook. I know Cook was on the practice squad last year. He could be there again this year. I went with Sharping because he was on the 53, but he was almost always inactive unless there was injury where they needed to have that 8th lineman. This is a position where I'm like, I would love for the Steelers to do I only said 2 in my breakdown, but it's actually one of 3 things. Either add somebody else before training camp to maybe give you some more depth. Maybe there's an undrafted rookie that really comes out of nowhere, Ramon Foster style, that can make this team and you can get excited about. Or pick up some better depth after roster cutdowns. So one of those 3, and honestly, the third one would not affect the initial 53-man roster because that would be the Steelers keeping something and then making a move whenever they do waivers or whatnot after that. So I would like to see a little bit more done with the depth there. They do not have the depth this year that they had last year because when you take 2 guys out that were starters, especially to start the season, I know Daniels got hurt early and more, that they're both gone. you didn't really replace them with anything new. You just took your good depth that you needed to move into those positions, up into those positions, but didn't really replace the depth yet. So, but at the same time, you don't want to cloud the issue when you have to this is really having to break down some of these linemen this year that were drafted highly in the last, not the most recent draft, but the two beforehand. So you really need to be able to evaluate these guys, and you don't really want to cloud the issue and not be able to get them the playing time because of somebody else. But at the same time, that depth is sketchy.
It is. And like I said, I've been very vocal. And anyone that listens to my show knows that I've been very vocal about my issues. And I just can't say issues because it could be okay. It could work out. But at the same time, I'm not liking the alternative if it doesn't. We'll put it that way. So to finish up the offensive side, Dave had 24 players. I had 25. And so now we go over to the defensive side of the football. Defensive line, we both have 7 players making the roster, but we don't have the same 7. I had Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon. I think they're locks, obviously. I went with Logan Lee. I went with Isaiah Loudermilk, Wyatt Black, who I probably could have put in that lock category as well. And I had Dean Lowry. Now, one thing I talked about in my analysis was I envisioned, like, in 2024, it's DeMarvin Leal and Loudermilk battling it out for a spot. And honestly, it could be the same thing this year. I just think Leal is a man without a home. He's a tweener. And so I know he got hurt last year. I think it was a neck injury. I don't know what he's going to look like this year. But Dave, what's your takeaway and what's your 7?
Yeah, I did not have the same 7. We have 2 that are different.
Right.
I have Hayward, Benton, Harmon, Black. I have I have a 5th lock that you don't even have on yours, and that's Daniel Ekuale that they picked up from the Patriots. He started 16 games last year. This is a guy that is a starter on the defensive line that is now coming into Pittsburgh, that even though if he's just depth, I think he's going to get playing time. He's another big dude. So I have him and especially looking at his contract, they don't pay guys like $2.5 million to then say, oh no, we're just going to cut him. That's not typically what they do. So I think even just for that, why I think he's a little bit closer to a lock than everything else. I went ahead for my last 2 and I did Logan Lee and DeMarvin Leal, because Lee, to me, could Logan Lee be a guy that you just don't ever hear from again and doesn't make the roster? Absolutely. But if he is good enough to be better than those guys, then the Steelers have a better defensive line. So that's me kind of doing my wishful thinking thing where I'm like, I want him to be good enough that he makes the 53. I don't want the Steelers to settle for him. I want him to be better than the likes of Isaiah Loudermilk and Dean Lowry, 2 guys that the Steelers aren't going to part with easily. I just want him to be good enough. We didn't really see much from him outside of the preseason last year because of injury. So that's just what I would like. Now, the reason I went with Leal is because still it's the pedigree. The Steelers how often do the Steelers cut 3rd round draft picks before the end of their rookie deal? Not very often. And yes, he's a tweener, but if you keep him as depth on both defensive line and outside linebacker, then you don't have to keep that extra outside linebacker. So that's why I went with him. I'm hoping he comes back, but if he doesn't make the team, I think it's going to be more about not coming. He was another neck injury, correct?
Yes.
So if there's a problem with the injury, we'll see. But I have him on there now, and it wouldn't even be a surprise if they say, you know what, he's going to start off on PUP or something like that. Because I just don't know. So trust me, we haven't heard anything like that. I'm just saying you just never know with those kind of injuries. So I just went with that. Didn't want to have the same thing as you for one, but I think those are all the names of people that are really in the mix.
Yeah, I thought that this was the most difficult position for me.
Yeah.
And the reason why is there's so many players. And yes, you have those 3 to 4 locks, and Dave, you threw in a 5th. That's fine. You're going to keep more than 5. And it's like, what does Mike Tomlin always say? How many? Well, in this case, it could be like 7 dogs and 2 bones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
It's a
players that,
lot.
hey, if Dean Lowry gets hurt, he's done. He's gone. If he's not an option anymore, if he shows out and he's fully healthy and he looks the way he did prior to his pectoral tear in 2023, maybe he makes it. I don't know. This was the most difficult position for me.
Yeah.
The next one was maybe the easiest, and that's maybe second to running back, and that's outside linebacker.
Yeah.
We all have the same TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Jack Sawyer. I don't think there's much to discuss here, Dave, but is there anything you wanted to add?
Well, it's not impossible for Jeremiah Moon to slide in as a fifth one if they decide to keep
True.
a fifth one because of special teams and everything else. But that's part of the reason why I kept Leal was to only have to keep 4 here.
Okay. So, yeah, it's pretty much standard operating procedure there from outside linebacker. Now let's go to inside linebacker. We both have 5, and we both have the same 5. Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison, Cole Holcomb, Peyton Wilson, and Carson Bruner. I said if Holcomb is returning to the lineup and is fully healthy, which we assume that he will be, based on the fact that he had his 21-day window started at the end of last season, and Omar Khan said if the team had a extended playoff run, would have been activated to the 53-man roster. Is there anyone else you could foresee? Is Mark Robinson an option here, Dave, to maybe keep 6?
I mean, he's an option. I don't know about keeping 6. I really don't. When it comes to Holcomb, the one thing you could say is a little bit concerning that he's back, but he's not fully back, is the fact that he did take a pay cut to stick around. But the fact that he took the pay cut, that the Steelers were still willing to give him as much as they did of what they were willing to do, just kind of shows an agreement of how it was all going. So I said, I don't know who's going to get the majority of the snaps next to Queen. I don't know if Cole Holcomb's recovered enough to do that. I don't know if Malik Harrison is up to that task because he's new. I don't know if the Steelers are ready to hand that to Peyton Wilson. I don't know. But I did go with Carson Bruner over Mark Robinson because I do think that might be a 2 dogs, 1 bone race. And they're both special teams guys, but Bruner is apparently can get by in pass defense. That I hear listening to Roy Countryman on their Black and Gold Blueprint on Friday, where I don't think Robinson has ever been anywhere close to being able to pass, being able to do pass coverage. So therefore, I just think it's time that the Steelers will just upgrade that 7th round pick with a different 7th round pick to have for longer and a cheaper deal.
And I think, again, when we're doing this exercise, we're talking about the fringe players. We're talking about a Mark Robinson who, believe it or not, does provide value on special teams.
Yeah.
Does he provide depth at inside linebacker? Not really, but he does provide value on special teams. So if it's a decision between Marvin Leal, could he be an answer at outside and on the defensive line? Yes, but does he really play special teams, and is he the same type of impact player? Probably not. So maybe the edge goes to Mark Robinson. That's the type of decision-making you have to think about in this.
That's exactly right, Jeff, because they don't have to keep 7 defensive linemen. I mean, my goodness, they've been as few as 5, especially since you're not playing 3 all that often. So that's a really, really good point.
All right, let's go to the next position. We go to cornerback. I only had 5. There's a reason why. You had 6. So I went Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay, new free agent acquisition, Corey Trice, Brandon Eccles, and Beanie Bishop. Now, I did say that I think Beanie Bishop and Dante Kent are going to have a good battle for that slot job. I think Beanie Bishop has the edge right now. Dave, you went in a different direction. I'll let you go and talk about that.
Well, I have the same 5 that you do, except I wanted an extra body in the secondary, and I'm like, corner or safety. So to start off, I went corner simply because he was a draft pick, and I added Dante Kent in there, but I did say that it could be Bishop or Kent, not Bishop and Kent. So if that's the way you're looking at corner, that doesn't look awful. And also, I'm still not ruling out that there could be another depth piece at corner that isn't on the roster yet. That's something that the Steelers could add something before training camp, during training camp, or even after cut downs, things of that nature. So I think that they're going to keep 10 defensive backs. And for now, I went with 6 corners. Just because I'll talk why a little bit more when we get to safety. But I just think in today's sub package football, you need more bodies in the secondary.
I agree. And so when you look at safety, a lot of times safety, and this is why we both went with 4 and we had the same 4: Minka Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, and Miles Killebrew. But I could also see Sebastian Castro,
Yeah.
who is the undrafted rookie free agent out of Iowa. I could see him cracking the 53-man roster and being that slot safety type, because we've seen this from Deshaun Elliott. They've done this for a long time. I don't know if he's going to. I didn't go that way yet. I want to see what the reports are about him coming out of camp and mini camp and all that stuff. But we went with the same 4. But I would keep your eye out on Castro, Sebastian Castro, and out of Iowa. I think he could maybe factor into this. But Dave, what do you think about safety?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot of the same thing. I would feel much better of only keeping 4 safeties because honestly, when you think about it, it's really 3. It really is because Miles Killebrew is your special teams guy, and they don't play him that much on defense.
No.
They just don't. I mean, do you know how many snaps he played on defense last year, Jeff?
Well, I think he is on the red zone defense or goal line at least. So I'm going to say he played, I don't know, 25.
9.
9. Golly, that's
He
even worse.
didn't even hit double digits.
Jeez.
So it's not that he's never out there, but he's rarely out there. So it's almost like you're really only going in with 3 safeties, and that's your guys to have your quote unquote 3 safety package. I would feel much better if either one, I knew one of the corners is a guy that could also play safety, like the Steelers had last year, although I don't think he did it very well, like what Cam Sutton was capable of in case they needed him to. Or the year before, it was Patrick Peterson, who, if he had to slide to safety. I don't know that with this, who the Steelers have a corner right now. Maybe someone like that emerges. Maybe they don't. And for that reason, it could be another safety in there, like Sebastian Castro, or if they add somebody else, that would not surprise me one bit either. I just wasn't ready to go undrafted free agent at safety over drafted player at corner in the very first one. And that's really the only thing I went with. I kind of want to hear what happens at practice and stuff, or even better, see it in a preseason game before we know a little bit more for sure.
Right. And I listened to Roy Countryman as well, and he talked a lot about the versatility of Castro in the secondary. And he can play the slot and he can play the deep safety. He's a physical player. Reminds me of an Elijah Riley. And the Steelers liked him a lot because of his versatility. So if he can provide some of that, maybe he does have a spot, but we'll see. But that tallies us up. Dave has 26 on defense. I have 25. So Dave, we both hit 50 in a different way. So we go to the specialists. This is not necessarily a nothing burger. Chris Boswell and Christian Kuntz are for sure. Cameron Johnston obviously is the prize free agent of 2024. But Dave, you brought this up. They have 2 punters on the roster.
Yeah.
And this is, did you have to think twice about Cameron Johnston, or did you not think twice about it?
I think if he's healthy, it's Johnston's job. But the question is he healthy?
Yeah.
From all the reports that I heard, he was still with the team in the locker room, being almost like a veteran, almost captain-like guy to the team throughout the season last year, even though he was out for the year. I think he's an important person to the team, and I think that he does get the job if he's healthy. But you have to answer that question if he's healthy. So I wouldn't mind the Steelers trying to. I wouldn't even care if it's just a swap of picks in 2026. If you get towards the end of cut down and everything, and you say, "Hey, you need a punter. You don't want to fight for him. We'll trade your Waitman. Give us your 6th next year for our 7th, and he's yours." Yeah. There you go. Unless he's even that much better, but it really does come down to the health of Cam Johnston.
And yes, and I forgot to say this, but Corliss Waitman he signed a 2-year contract with the team last year, and so he is still under contract. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers say, "Look, Cameron Johnston, you're our guy, but we got to make sure you're fully healthy before we even do anything." So that's going to be how it shakes out most likely, and that leads us to 53 total players. And again, to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this segment, I looked at last year's and what we did after the draft. and there were names that didn't even make it to training camp. So don't go with pen or Sharpie and writing down on your individual depth chart as if you have one at your house. Don't be writing any of these out in pencil. Use pencil. We're going to be updating these throughout the offseason. But Dave, what are your final thoughts on the 53-man roster predictions?
It's fun. It's interesting to actually look at where their spots. I think this goes back to what I was saying on our live draft show on day 3, after the Steelers selected Will Howard in the 6th round. I'm like, your 7th round picks right now, it's tricky to find a spot for them on the roster. And yet the Steelers drafted players in 2 positions where they could squeeze on. So I thought that was good usage of those picks. So now we'll see if they actually come through. The biggest thing that's going to shape this as much as anything is injuries. We know they're going to happen. We know that a player that we think might do well might end up being injured. You could have guys going on on IR. You can even have 2 of them going on IR before the 53-man roster is set that are designated to return. So that throws another thing in there, or guys that are lost for the season. But it's fun to do this. I enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we will be updating these. I think the next one we'll do is after mini camp or right before training camp, one or the other. And we'll update them throughout camp and then give our final predictions before the actual rosters are trimmed from 90 down to 53. But Dave, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.